The first time I met Karen Muldrow, she was holding a clipboard like it was a badge of honor. Her sharp bob haircut, coral pink tracksuit, and pursed-lipped smile made it immediately clear. This wasn't a woman who asked. She informed. "Welcome to Willow Creek Estates," she said, without warmth. "I'm the HOA president. You're in lot 27, correct?" "Yes," I said, gripping the last moving box from my truck. "David Graham." She eyed the truck like it was leaking oil on her driveway. "We like to maintain a certain aesthetic here. No visible antennas, satellite dishes, or, her eyes flicked to my solar panels. Sci-fi-looking accessories. They're energy efficient," I said flatly. She made a tight smile. "Of course." Very forward-thinking. Karen wasn't here to welcome me. She was here to assert dominance. She handed me a printed packet an inch thick. "Everything you need to know is in there, especially our community policies. Page 6 outlines the Wi-Fi guidelines." I blinked. "Wi-Fi guidelines?" "We encourage open networks," she chirped. "So, everyone can stay connected. It's part of the Willow Creek way. Sharing resources, staying neighborly." I resisted the urge to laugh. "You mean you want me to leave my Wi-Fi unprotected?" "Only if you want to be a good neighbor," she replied, as though threatening me with a smile. I had spent 15 years as a cybersecurity consultant. I knew every trick, every exploit, every backdoor that someone like Karen wouldn't even understand enough to misuse. Open networks were digital invitations for disaster. "I prefer to keep my network secure," I said, evenly. Her smile twitched. "Well, I hope that doesn't become an issue." Then she turned and left, already tapping something into her phone. 2 days later, things started to get weird. My internet began dropping during video calls. Streaming stuttered. My smart thermostat rebooted 3 times in a single day. I ran diagnostics. The logs didn't lie. Over 140 unauthorized login attempts in less than 24 hours. Someone was trying to brute force into my system. I changed the password. Activated 2-factor. Still, they kept coming. I had no proof it was Karen. But the timing was too perfect, and the motive glaring. She wanted my Wi-Fi. I said no. Now my network was under siege. I wasn't about to let some bored suburban dictator compromise my home. So I struck back. I logged into my router and changed my SSID, the network name, to something unmistakable. Not for Karen 911. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't polite. But it was deserved. The next morning, as I sipped coffee on the porch, I heard it. A choked gasp from across the cul-de-sac. Karen stood frozen in her driveway, phone in hand, no doubt reading the list of available networks. She stormed inside without saying a word. An hour later, a notice was shoved into my mailbox. Community decency violation. Inappropriate network language. Apparently, Karen had taken offense, not just to the name but to the emotional distress it allegedly caused her. I posted the letter on the neighborhood group chat with a simple caption. "Guess free speech doesn't apply to Wi-Fi?" That stirred the pot. A few neighbors chimed in with laughing emojis. One guy down the street renamed his network Karen Free Zone. Another followed suit with password protected for a reason. Karen's response? A hastily scheduled emergency HOA meeting. Cyberbullying. She declared in front of 15 mildly interested residents in folding chairs. "We cannot tolerate this kind of targeted harassment." I stood. "There's no policy on Wi-Fi names." "It violates the spirit of the HOA," she snapped. "The bylaws don't mention spirit," I said, holding up the packet she gave me. "They do mention personal property rights." Her eye twitched. A small win, but enough. As the meeting adjourned, several residents shook my hand quietly. "I've been waiting for someone to stand up to her," one whispered. I nodded, but I knew Karen wasn't done. She wasn't the kind of person to let go. She was the kind to escalate. This wasn't just about Wi-Fi anymore. It was about power. And I'd just declared war. Karen didn't come back immediately. She retreated for a day, maybe 2, presumably to regroup. But like any seasoned tyrant, she returned, this time with subtlety in her arsenal. It started with a new HOA citation. Visible wires, code violation 4.7. She had taken issue with the thin fiber optic line leading from my router to a side window antenna. A setup so discreet, birds hadn't noticed it. That same day, a letter appeared in my mailbox, accusing me of unpermitted digital infrastructure. I almost laughed. It was Wi-Fi, not a telecom tower. But this wasn't about legality. It was about pressure. She was probing, testing for weaknesses. I filed the citations away and added motion sensors to my lawn. Then one night, just past midnight, I caught something. A faint flicker in the corner of my security feed. Movement near the utility panel on the side of my house. I rewound the footage. There she was. Karen, in a gray hoodie, crouched beneath the junction box with a flashlight clenched in her teeth. She was fiddling with the lock, glancing over her shoulder like a raccoon casing a trash can. I zoomed in. Her license plate was visible on the car parked across the street, her tan Lexus, parked in front of someone else's house. I downloaded the footage and labeled it clearly, Karen Attempt 1.mp4. At noon the next day, she returned, dressed like royalty again, clipboard in hand, as if the hoodie escapade hadn't happened. I thought we could clear the air, she said, handing me a steaming mug. Cocoa. Extra marshmallows. Like neighbors. I raised an eyebrow. You show up at midnight in a hoodie to tamper with my equipment, and now you want to share cocoa? Her smile froze. Excuse me? I held up my phone and pressed play. She watched herself on screen, caught red-handed in glorious 1080p. That could be anyone, she said too quickly. Sure, I said. Anyone with your license plate and your exact orthopedic sneakers. She set the mug down on the porch rail and straightened. You wouldn't share your Wi-Fi. Now you're trying to smear my name. I'm protecting my property. Her voice dropped an octave. Do you know what happens to people who stir up trouble with the HOA? Is that a threat? She tilted her head. It's a warning. That was all I needed. I emailed the footage to the HOA board, CC'd the police, and forwarded a copy to my attorney, just in case. The HOA board ignored it. Karen still had majority sway, and most of the members were either too scared to cross her or too tired to care. But I didn't need them. I had proof. The next morning, I posted a heavily edited, 1-minute clip of her nighttime caper to the Willow Creek Estates Neighborhood Watch app. No commentary. Just raw footage, a timestamp, and a caption. Guess the HOA has after-hours duties now. The neighborhood exploded. Comment after comment piled in. That's criminal. She's done this before. I knew something shady was going on with her and our assessments. Can she even access our utility boxes legally? For once, Karen didn't respond. She didn't have to. The silence was loud enough. But she wasn't finished. That week, a contractor in a reflective vest showed up at my front door. Said he's with the HOA. My neighbor Ava told me, whispering through the fence. Karen sent him. Something about signal normalization. He tried to open your panel. I told him you work in cybersecurity. He left. I reviewed the HOA policies. No clause gave them the right to tamper with private utilities. But that didn't stop Karen from trying to change the rules. At the next board meeting, held suspiciously on a Tuesday afternoon when most people were working, she proposed a motion. All residents must allow HOA-monitored calibration of digital infrastructure to prevent neighborhood interference. A couple of board members nodded, confused. The rest stared at her like she was building an evil heir. The motion passed by a slim margin, Karen casting the tie-breaking vote herself. But this was her overreach. Her fatal misstep. Because she'd used HOA funds, dues paid by every household, to hire that contractor. And I had the receipt. Literally. The guy had accidentally left the invoice in my mailbox, addressed to Willow Creek HOA. Attention, Karen Muldrow. I scanned it, saved it, and began composing an email with the subject line. Unauthorized use of HOA funds, documentation attached. Karen had declared war. Now, I was building my counterstrike. 3 hours after I sent the email exposing Karen's misuse of HOA funds, the neighborhood's group chat detonated like a powder keg. Screenshots of the contractor's invoice zipped from one phone to another. Neighbors who had never commented before were now emboldened. Donna from Lot 11 posted, "Why are we paying for Karen's vendettas?" Another neighbor added, "HOA money isn't her personal piggy bank." The tide was turning, and fast. Karen, for once, didn't reply. Her silence was its own confession. By sundown, a group of residents, many of whom I'd never spoken to, knocked on my door. Ava was among them, holding a clipboard of her own. "We've had enough," she said. "We're organizing a recall vote. We want Karen out." It felt like a scene from a political drama. Tired faces, angry voices, people who'd spent too long under Karen's boot, finally standing up. "She's fined me for leaving my trash bin out for 12 minutes, one man muttered. "She made me replant my garden because it wasn't aesthetically consistent," said another. "She sent a drone over my backyard," someone else added. Apparently, my Wi-Fi feud was just the tip of the iceberg. By the end of the night, Ava had 19 signatures, more than enough to force a vote. I offered my printer and garage for the campaign HQ. Within 48 hours, signs appeared all over Willow Creek. "Recall Karen. Reclaim our neighborhood." Karen's response? A barrage of counterflyers. "Stop the chaos. Stand with stability." HOA needs order, not anarchy. "Don't let a hacker dictate our future." I couldn't believe it. Now I was a hacker? Still, I knew I had to stay composed. Let her flail. Let her dig. But I wasn't done either. I renamed my Wi-Fi network again. Karen Funzo. That one went viral. A screenshot hit Reddit and racked up thousands of upvotes in the r/mildly infuriating subreddit. Karen had become an internet meme. At the next emergency HOA meeting, now packed to the brim with irate homeowners, Karen showed up looking visibly shaken but defiant. "Let's remember," she began, voice quivering, "that rules are the backbone of civilized living. Without structure, this neighborhood descends into chaos." A chorus of boos echoed through the community hall. Ava stood. "The only chaos here has been your reign. You've overstepped, misused funds, and harassed multiple homeowners." "I protected this neighborhood," Karen shouted, red rising in her cheeks. "From freeloaders, from rule breakers, from selfish. From Wi-Fi passwords." I asked, stepping forward. Laughter erupted. Even the board members, once silent shadows behind Karen, chuckled. I held up a stack of printed documentation, screenshots of login attempts, the video still of Karen at my panel, the contractor's invoice. "This isn't protection. It's surveillance. It's intimidation. And it's illegal." A board member cleared his throat. "We've reviewed the evidence. Given the growing concern, we're moving forward with the recall vote, effective immediately." Karen's eyes went wide. "You can't do this. I am the HOA." "No," Ava said softly. "You were." There was no grand meltdown, no scene. Just a trembling exhale and the sound of Karen gathering her clipboard and walking out of the room. But I knew better. Karen wasn't done. Later that night, my firewall caught a new threat. Someone tried to spoof my router's IP and flood my smart devices with fake updates. It was amateurish, clumsy, full of typos. Probably someone who thought reading a tech blog made them a hacker. Still, I traced the attack. It came from a single device. Karen's address. I didn't file charges. Not yet. I wanted to see how far she'd go. Instead, I called in a favor from a former colleague, a digital forensics expert. We installed a quiet trapdoor in my network. Nothing aggressive. Just a honeypot. If Karen came poking again, we'd catch everything. And she would have no plausible deniability left. Meanwhile, the recall vote was set for the coming Saturday. Every homeowner would cast a ballot. Karen had 5 days to sway the tide. But her grip was slipping. Neighbors who used to smile politely at her now crossed the street. Her flyers were ignored. The HOA website, ironically hosted on a platform I now administrated, had a new banner. One community. One voice. Vote for change. The war wasn't over. But the battlefield had shifted. And now, I wasn't just defending my Wi-Fi. I was defending my neighbors. My community. and maybe, just maybe, bringing down the HOA tyrant who thought she ruled it all. The morning of the recall vote dawned cloudy and tense. A low mist hung over Willow Creek, like a breath held too long. The HOA clubhouse, usually an echo chamber of apathy and artificial cheer, buzzed with genuine purpose. People came early, some with coffee mugs, others with folding chairs, and for once, they weren't here for yard regulations or paint swatches. They were here for Karen. The vote was simple. One box for yes, recall HOA president. One box for no. Ava and I manned the check-in table, while a neutral third party tallied the votes inside. Even residents who hadn't left their houses in months showed up. One elderly couple pulled up in a golf cart, the husband waving a cane and muttering, "I've waited 20 years for this." Karen arrived fashionably late, sunglasses on, lips pressed tight. No clipboard this time. Just a small, leather-bound notebook and that same cold gaze she wore like armor. She didn't speak to anyone. Just marched inside, voted, and left. No smile. No speech. Not even a glare in my direction. That alone told me something had shifted. By 3 p.m., the votes were in. 78% voted yes. Karen was officially removed. The announcement was met with cheers, clapping, even a few happy tears. Someone popped a bottle of non-alcoholic sparkling cider, and Ava gave me a hug that almost cracked my ribs. But I didn't celebrate just yet. I went home, opened my laptop, and checked the honeypot I'd set up earlier that week. Just like clockwork, it had logged another attempted breach. Same IP. Same telltale typos in the command string. Only this time, Karen had gotten greedy. She wasn't just trying to access my network. She'd scanned and attempted pings to 4 other homes on the block, Ava's included. I packaged everything, IP logs, timestamps, packets, the video footage from my panel, and uploaded it to a secure drive. Then I made one final call. Detective Miles, a tech-savvy officer I'd worked with in my previous life, listened carefully. "You've got enough for a criminal mischief charge, maybe even unauthorized access," he said. "She's lucky she didn't get in. Otherwise, we'd be talking about felonies." An official report was filed that afternoon. Still, I wasn't interested in dragging Karen to court. No, I wanted something better. Permanent, public accountability. So, I did what she feared most. I shared the entire story online. I posted it to the Neighborhood Watch app, our community forum, and eventually Reddit, with names redacted, of course. The title? HOA Karen demanded my Wi-Fi, so I renamed it Not for Karen 9/11 and brought her down byte by byte. The response was seismic. Thousands of shares. Hundreds of comments. HOA horror stories from across the country poured in, many thanking me for giving them hope, or at least a good laugh. Even better? News reached a local journalist who ran a weekend expose titled "The Tyrant Next Door," when power trips turned digital. The HOA board, freshly liberated from Karen's shadow, moved fast. They implemented transparency policies, eliminated frivolous citations, and, my personal favorite, established a rule barring board members from using HOA funds without a full member vote. Karen? She vanished for a while. Rumor had it she sold her house within a month. No for sale signs, no goodbyes. Just one morning, her Lexus was gone, and her blinds never opened again. The day she left, I renamed my Wi-Fi one last time. Finally free _5G. But it wasn't just about a network name anymore. It was about reclaiming our right to peace, our right to privacy, our right to live without fear of fines for mailbox height or grass length. Karen thought power came from control. She forgot that real power comes from unity, from neighbors who stop being strangers, from quiet voices rising in chorus, from people who say, "Not today, not anymore." I started as a guy with a router and a stubborn streak. Now I was part of something bigger. And for the first time since moving into Willow Creek, I didn't feel like I was under surveillance. I felt home.